Breaking news tonight, disgusting Diddy's victim cries between sobs on the stand. I am not a star. I am not an animal. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories, and I want to thank you for being with us. In the last hours, the trial judge shoots down the music mogul's most recent request for a mistrial. Don't you know he's having a Diddy fit right now over that? Heartbreaking testimony pours from the witness stand as Jane, not her real name, declares, "I am not an animal." After heartbreaking testimony of beatings, about doors being broken down, draggings, druggings, marathon sessions lasting up to 18 hours and longer, where she actually felt she was nothing more than an animal. Straight out to the Monaghan Federal Courthouse, standing by special guest Tisa Tells, investigator, host of Tisa Tells on YouTube. Tisa, thank you for being with us. You know, the way you described this witness on the stand as a baby bunny getting tortured has really stuck in my head. What happened today?
Today, what happened was there was shock. We knew that the defense was coming in for the cross, okay? However, there was a little commotion before then. As you mentioned, the motion for mistrial was denied. However, there is an issue with juror number 6, okay? The defense let that slip out when they were busy arguing with the judge. The prosecution wants juror number 6. It looks like stricken. The defense wants them in. Today, Jane Doe took the stand, and she still had that soft, sweet caramel voice. She still had a very, genuine feminine demeanor. However, she stood her ground with the defense as they tried to move forward with this narrative of you're a grown woman and you make grown choices. They started early on asking her, you like that, you enjoyed that, right? He treated you good. And she really did a great job of pushing back and saying, wait a second, no, at the time. But now that I've had time, in her voice, now that I have time, I've really thought about it. And I realized that's not what I wanted. And that's not what I wanted. And I really feel a lot of resentment toward him, that he took me down this road of debauchery with the drugs and introduced me to this lifestyle that I really, really hated. So again, it's early on in the cross-examination, and already this little bunny rabbit has a little steel, and she's pushing back on the narrative that the defense is trying to push.
Any idea, Tisa Tells, why the state wants juror number 6 thrown off?
I mean, I've been in the courtroom, and I can only guess. But if I had to guess, juror number 6, from what I can, there's been a lot of there's been a little camaraderie between the jurors that I think the judge did a good job of shutting down. But juror number 6, from my impression, has shown a few issues, okay? There might have been issues with not being fully engaged, issues with passing notes back and forth, issues with maybe the facial expressions. Again, it's not just juror number 6. We've seen this in the jury. I think the New York Times even wrote a letter about that. I did a live the first time and kind of rang the alarm bell. But I got to be honest with you, this is a guessing game as to what's going on. Everybody in the courtroom is wondering what is going on. The court is keeping it under lock and seal, but it is something heavy. And it leads me to believe that it's something pro-Diddy, because the defense is like, hey, we're fine for them to stay in. It's the prosecution that's like, no, Your Honor, we need to review transcripts. We need to review transcripts because, there's cameras all over the court, not just for what is being said in the jury box, but also, and they can even catch whispers that's over the jury box, where the public sits, where the press sits. So they want to actually review transcripts, and then they're going to write a letter to the court. But again, everybody is really taken back and wondering what's going on. But as soon as I hear more, you will be the first to hear.
Tisa Tell's joining us from outside the Monahan Federal Courthouse in Manhattan, where Sean Combs is facing a multi-count federal indictment, including RICO and sex trafficking charges. Tisa, I find it to be more than a coincidence that Sean Combs has just been rebuked by the judge for communicating with the jury, and now the state wants a particular juror thrown off the case. This is a big deal in the legal world for a juror to be thrown off. And I want to get back to the importance of Jane, not her real name, testimony. But this is important. Something has happened that's significant, that is critical enough for the state to want a juror removed. Following on the heels of Sean Combs being rebuked and threatened to be thrown out of court for communicating with the jury. From what you can tell, has he been communicating with, even if non-verbally, juror number 6?
I think, and this is my opinion, from what I've observed from his body language, I think there's a real case to be made that he has been communicating non-verbally. I don't think not just with juror number 6, I think with all the jurors. Now, why did they particularly focus on juror number 6? Again, people have said things, in the juror selection, information was given, things that they do with their home, things around them was given. It has been the whole jury that was the issue. The nodding, the head waving, the silent, as the prosecution could describe, the silent communication. Juror number 6, I will say, in the testimony with prior victims, Mia especially, a little bit with Cassie, there was definitely some type of skepticism that from the first row, I could see that actually spilled out into the second row. Again, I agree with you. This is a huge deal. But again, the issue is what specifically put juror number 6 on the edge, that we could maybe make a case that that rows 1 and 2, certain jurors were actually doing the same thing. So again, it makes you wonder, did that silent communication turn into something more tangent? Diddy is in jail for doing the unthinkable. And by the way, things that we can say that the average person would say is not only unthinkable, it's just not smart. So because he is currently locked up in the MDC for that, on Diddy's side, I 100% believe that if the past can show you what the present and the future will hold, this is not out of his range of tools he would use. However, I find it so hard to think that a juror would actually take that step and do something that could jeopardize the trial, jeopardize their freedom, and just jeopardize the sanctity of the SDNY. Again, we are locked in. Again, but what is that extra step that has the prosecution so worried and concerned?
When, if ever, was the last time you checked your home's title? Well, if you're like me, the answer is never. So stop what you're doing and make sure your title is still in your name immediately. Go to HometitleLock.com, use promo code Nancy. You also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. Free. That's 24/7 title monitoring, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now. Use promo code Nancy. Straight out to Lauren Conlon, investigative reporter, star of Pop Crime TV, joining us also at the courthouse. Lauren Conlon, Jane, not her real name's testimony is critical for so many reasons, not standalone, but because it bolsters Cassie Ventura's testimony. As a matter of fact, Jane testifies to being with Sean Combs when the CNN video of the Intercontinental Hotel beatdown goes to air. What happened?
Particularly about the CNN video of Sean Combs beating up Cassie and the fact that Jane was there when he found out. She describes that they were sleeping in bed and one of his sons came knocking on the door to tell him this, and he pretty much spent the entire day with family and friends in kind of a huddle figuring out what to do. And Jane describes being at the breakfast table. She was about to eat breakfast and then she saw the video on the news herself and she lost her appetite. She also describes kind of being in a part of that huddle towards the end of the day when Sean Combs was trying to figure out this apology and what he would say.
Back to Tisa Tells, also joining us at the courthouse. Tisa, that apology video, that Jane was there when Combs brings in the family, advisors, her. They talked to a lawyer about doing the apology video. And it seems as if Sean Combs was instructed not to use Cassie's name. And I think I know why, because it would be somewhat of an admission. So tell me about Jane's testimony about her helping construct that apology video that Sean Combs disseminated on social.
Now, one of the most shocking things that came out about in the courthouse was, as you know, his apology video was largely not well received because people thought that it was disrespectful because he never said Cassie's name. We found out, and it was super shocking via Mark Agnafilio, that he was the one that said, take Cassie's name out of there because she may well be a grand jury witness. And already they were forward thinking that they didn't want to look like they were in any way tampering that. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us, and it told the courtroom largely, he knew how much trouble he was in. And he knew Jane was one of the only people that could either testify, right? Or put a nail in his coffin. And that's why it was so shocking to people as her testimony went on that this woman has your freedom in her hands, but its nature couldn't be denied. And he proceeded to treat her even more cruelly, even more shocking. Again, it was very strategic, having her around the family, having her lawyers, paying for her lawyers, making sure that there was nothing she would be under the umbrella of legal privilege. However, it looks like they somehow misplayed that because here we are again in court and Jane is right now having Diddy's freedom in her hands.
I love the way that you explain that, kind of keeping her in the fold so she would use his lawyer that he paid for so he could still keep a tab on her. And she was very quick to point out, Tisa, that she did not speak to investigators before she testified at the grand jury, that she didn't cooperate with them. She was only there because she was subpoenaed and forced to be there. And that's after speaking to the lawyer Sean Combs provided for her. Now, I want everybody to look at what Tisa Tells is talking about, the apology video. Jane, the witness, was there when the family and the lawyers are all trying to figure out what are we going to say in the wake of the Cassie beatdown video. This is critical. Watch.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. But sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy, and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
I really don't even know what to say to that. That's from Diddy's official Instagram, except technical legal term BS. BS. Therapy, my rear end. Rehab, really? And then asking God to forgive him? Whoa. Tisa Tells, isn't it true, according to the witness who is under oath and would be committing perjury if she's lying, that after his apology video, he then goes on to beat Jane so badly that in one case he broke down the door, and she has video of that, and the jury saw it. Now, this is when he's trying to be a better man. Again, objection. My rear end. That's a lie. Be a better man. He beat her to hell and back. Is that when he's a better man? Tore down the door again? Objection. My rear end.
What happened in court when Jane Doe testified? We all knew the violence was coming, but nobody knew it was going to be a scene out of The Shining. To hear that little bunny rabbit talk about, yes, she threw a glass, yes, she threw a candle, and then she went on a chase through her house. She ran to the bedroom door, realizing quickly she made a mistake. She locked the door. He kicked in the door. Again, these are expensive, heavy doors. She even said it was so much to fix, she couldn't afford it, which, by the way, he gave her the money to fix these doors in cash in an unmarked brown paper bag, which seems to be the Diddy special. Let's see what the IRS has to say about this, But he kicked in one door, right? She ran to the bathroom. He kicked in the door to the bathroom. She ran to the closet, hiding, and was trying to kick in the door to the closet, kick the handle, kick the door. She did what she could. She feverishly changed into a dress she could run in. He kicked that in. She ran out the house barefoot, 6 blocks barefoot in a dark Southern California evening. You know how dark it gets in. And she hid for about 2 hours, hoping that he would calm down and go away. At the end of 2 hours, she came back, still scared out of her mind, and came back. And that demon was still waiting for her. And the violence she actually said he went through, it broke our hearts, but it actually shocked. And mind you, while we're listening to the violence that was to come, the apology video is still fresh in our minds. Cassie is still fresh in our minds. When I say he painted his own self out to be a liar, it was shocking and groundbreaking just how damaging her testimony was to him.
Their relationship never recovered after that night, both of them agreeing to no longer see each other romantically. Combs sent her roughly $12,000 for the damages to her home and to cover Antoine's payment. Jane never fixed the 4 doors Combs kicked in, but the jury saw photos of the damages and videos of Combs and Jane discussing her injuries from that night. The video captured bruising around her eye and a welt on her forehead visible through the makeup on her face.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice. Pulls her off a balcony like he's the villain in a movie.
This is The Sopranos.
It is like he was a film director.
He plots his life out almost like it's different episodes.
He has grabbed everybody's attention in his life.
He lives his life like it's a movie. Is he grabbing the attention of juror number 6 and more? After Combs rebuked for communicating in court with the jurors, suddenly juror number 6 is under threat of being thrown off the jury at the request of the state. No ruling yet. The defense is fighting it. Tisa Tells joining me from the courthouse, investigator and commentator, host of Tisa Tells on YouTube. That's where I found her. Tisa Tells, thank you for being with us and braving the elements. Tisa, in court, we hear the witness, as you described as a baby bunny getting tortured, saying, and these are heartbreaking words to me, I am not an animal. The fact that this woman was brought to the point where she says, I'm not an animal. What happened, Tisa?
So what happened broke all our hearts. She was treated worse than an animal. She was treated subhuman, okay? She was forced to hide for 2 hours, 6 blocks away from her house in the bushes, barefoot, for fear of what this man would do, okay? She finally made her way back to the house over 2 hours later. And when she walked in that house, she saw Sean walking toward her. Now, at this point, she was praying everything would be okay. And it seemed like it might have been. And they went into the house, okay? All of a sudden, there is some argument over another person. She actually calls him a Even though the prosecution is quick to say that the girl was over 18. But to Jane Doe, she said if she's not old enough to buy drinks, what are you doing with her? She is a child. An argument starts over that. And the most insane thing I can never think of starts. She all of a sudden thinks she feels all the resentment rise up in her. She feels all the ways he's played her for a fool. And she starts throwing candles at him. Now, mind you, the candles would hit him, but the wax is hitting him. And if you think about what Diddy's into, I would have thought he would have liked a little wax splashing on him. But this enraged him. This enraged him. And he went after her. She took off, okay? Now, one important detail that I overlooked was the fact that when she was trying to make a way out the house, how could I overlook that? He literally was, when he was kicking through the doors, he kicked through 4 doors. Again, the jury was shocked, leaning in. There were heavy wooden doors splintered in, okay? When she ran to leave the house, he literally kicked her, that same strength that knocked through 4 doors. He kicked her again and hit her in the thigh. She fell down. She literally still tried to crawl away. This monster lifted her up in a chokehold. She remembers her little toes dangling. She's barefoot. Her little toes dangling while he is trying to choke her and make her submit. She didn't know what was going to do, right? He then threw her down. And while this is happening, okay, the woman, the child, the little girl, because she's not old enough to buy drinks, according to Jane Doe, is on the phone berating her. And Diddy is letting that happen while she is being kicked and pummeled. Finally, Jane Doe yelled out, "He's beating my right now." And that's when the phone got cut off. But let me just say this. It wasn't over. And you would think this monster would have had enough. But again, I guess he's built for this. She then said she felt so exhausted, more exhausted than she's ever felt in her life. And she went into the shower. I would imagine to try to focus, to try to center herself, to try to really just be like, what is going on in my life? Okay. She's in the shower and she says that she is naked, as you would expect. However, why was that such an important detail? She said she turned around and this demon is standing in the shower, comes into the shower with her, and it's just standing there. He's not under the water. He's in the shower away from the water, and he is wearing clothes. He is wearing pants, and he sits there in the shower watching her. She's startled. He turns around, boom! He smacks her in the face. She gets caught off guard. He smacks her again. She gets caught off guard. Smacks her again the 3rd time with all his strength and knocks her to the ground. Okay? Knocks her to the ground. It was traumatic. And you guys, that was only act 2. There was more violence that unfolded. Again, this testimony was shocking and it appalled everybody in the courtroom. I cannot underline that enough, how appalled everybody was to hear this.
So Greg Morse joining me, veteran trial lawyer, criminal defense attorney, joining us out of the Palm Beach jurisdiction, author of Untested on Amazon at morselegal.com. So you're still saying it's just a tiff between boyfriend and girlfriend?
Well, it's the Jane's testimony. If I didn't know who called her, I would think the defense called her. Her testimony wasn't supportive of sex trafficking. It was supportive of battery, maybe
Okay,
aggravated
wait a minute. What do
battery.
you
But
think
this is a
sex
sex
trafficking
trafficking
is?
start. Well, I know it's not people that the day before Sean Combs is arrested, they go and have a hotel night with them. They want to rub their feet in afterwards. These are women that made bad choices with the sex stuff, but none of their testimony says that the violence was to force them into it. She only got angry when she thought Sean Combs was actually sleeping with another person. She still had her rent paid. That was her main concern when the employment separated. She testified to that. So while Sean Combs is a horrible, weak human being and disgusting, the prosecution charged this as sex trafficking, and the defense has to be very happy with what could have been much worse testimony that Jane gave them the things they said in opening, that this was an angry person. This was someone maybe you wouldn't do these type of sex acts and these type of partying, but these women intentionally did it. They only got angry after the fact. And that's what we're seeing here. And as far as the sex trafficking case, unfortunately, these aren't victims of sex trafficking. Real victims of sex trafficking don't rub their captor's feet unless they're forced to. They don't get their rent paid when they don't live with the person. That's just not how it goes. So he's a horrible human, but the defense got some good stuff to work with in Jane's testimony. And the mistrial, it's probably because Sean looked at the juror and the prosecution got excited and tried to make a big deal of it. So, these things happen
No,
in trials. You've
actually,
been
the
in a bunch of
mistrial
them.
motion was by the defense. I believe it's the third
No.
one they've made. The third one's been shot down. So, Dr. Bethany
Yes.
Marshall, see, did you hear everything that Greg Morse just said? See, that's the problem. That is the problem. You just heard Tisa tells, and she's got a lot more to tell us about the beatings over and over, tearing down 4 doors to get at the victim. And she's about to tell you about all the written communications that Jane sends going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. As a matter of fact, Bethany, whoa, listen to this.
Jane sends texts. I don't want to be used and locked in a room to perform and fulfill your fantasies. I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal. Coming to the realization of what this really is. When Combs replies, she's the only one who can bring him peace, Jane snaps back, introduce her to P. It's not me. It's the entertainment that puts you at peace. P referred to one of the entertainers, Paul.
When a woman is beaten and beaten and beaten and dragged and hiding in the bushes and writing, I am not an animal. I don't want to be locked in a room and forced to perform sex tricks while you watch. That is not consensual sex.
Well, Nancy, she's saying no. No means no. Even adolescents know that now in our society. She is saying no, and he kicks down 4 doors. And let me tell you something, Nancy. When a person is enraged or having a rage attack, it takes only 20 minutes for the amygdala to calm back down again. In other words, he could have controlled himself. He could have walked out that door, walked around the block, taken a pause, taken a beat, but he enjoyed beating her. This was a sadistic beatdown, which tells me that he was in full control of her. I doubt she could have gotten away even though she was trying. He beat her within an inch of her life and let her live so he could sex traffic her even more if these allegations are true. So we keep talking about how women don't get away from men like this. This is the tale that's unfolding right now. If anyone has any doubt about women staying with men who abuse them or sex traffic them, just listen to the story and ask yourself if Jane could have left or if she was afraid for her life.
With me, Danny Pinter, out of Washington, Senior Vice President, Director of Law Center, National Center on Sex Exploitation. Danny, I'm reading directly from the code. Sex trafficking involves exploiting a person for sex acts through force, fraud, coercion, recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining a person for sex exploitation, regardless of whether it's force, fraud, or coercion. Bam! I've never seen a case fit into sex trafficking definitions more than this one.
You hit the nail on the head, Nancy. This is classic sex trafficking. And the prosecution doesn't have to prove force, fraud, and coercion. They can prove any one of them. But I completely agree with you that every single one is present. You could ask any law enforcement agency that investigates sex trafficking, and they have a word for what Sean Combs is doing. It's called Romeo pimping. Literally, very often, sex trafficking victims rub the feet voluntarily of their captors. Very often, they believe they're in love, and part of that loving relationship, the trafficker uses against them. And here we have force with all the violence. We have fraud, where we heard in Jane Doe's testimony that Diddy lured her in, groomed her with this big romantic relationship. It started off very classic. He's taking on vacations. It was loving. It was kind. It was gentle. It didn't start with freak offs. He slowly introduces that. That's fraudulent. And then we have so many examples of coercion. As you stated, and as the doctor pointed out, many times she said she doesn't want to do this. Sean knew she didn't want to do this, but he kept pushing her. And we know it's coercion because the definition of coercion under the statute is that using a scheme or a pattern to make the victim believe that if they didn't comply, serious harm would come to them.
Welcome back. Joining us at the Monaghan Federal Courthouse is Tisa Tells, investigator, commentator, host of Tisa Tells on YouTube, where I found her. Tisa, again, thank you for being with us. I want to outline for Greg Morse, who obviously does not know the definition of sex trafficking or coercion, a point where, Tisa, Jane was in the shower vomiting after being forced to have sex with 3 male sex workers. Let's just get that mental image for a moment. Having another 18-hour sex marathon on video, which later she was threatened with, by the way, and then so disgusted she starts vomiting. Combs comes in, makes sure she's through vomiting, and then he's happy because he wants her to get back in the ring. Tell me what happened, Tisa.
What happened was, this is the time that she said that she wanted to have sobriety because she felt like, much like Cassie, she was sliding down the road with pills, trills, tricks, whatever Diddy wanted, okay? She literally arranged to have one heavily man after the other, where, by the way, she wasn't allowed to use any type of protection. Again, the pain was the point. And after she crawled into that bathroom and she vomited.
Okay, wait. I didn't hear the part about the. Did not hear that part.
Yes.
Stop. Okay, I'm going to need a shrink after this and a shower myself. I'm going to spray myself with Lysol, my ears, after hearing this. Start that over. What did you say about the... This is not about sex. This is about trying to hurt Jane.
This was about hurting Jane. Diddy had 3 requirements as far as I can see. 1, the woman must suffer. 2, they could not use protection. And 3, the escort, the entertainer, whatever.
When you say protection, he did not allow Jane to have the sex worker use. They had to have unprotected to make Sean Combs over in the corner happy.
Listen, when he saw that, it killed his vibe. He demanded, he needed to see that free, okay? And then he literally, after that, the 3rd requirement was that they must be to the point of both victims actually said that they were always in pain.
Is that
afterwards.
What the words were in the courtroom? Heavily.
And even above the way they looked in the face, he was only concerned with the size below the waist. Again, Diddy went after, but let me just say something to your esteemed
it's all
guest.
laughable in a way, the way we're talking about it. But just think about the victim begging, I want him to at least use a... And that would actually make Sean Combs mad?
It would not only make him mad, it would make him enraged. As a matter of fact, in prior testimony, she told about the fact where there was a guy and he was stinky and dirty and he was sweating all over. And she begged, can I please use a condom? She didn't want this guy touching her. She just remembers sweat dripping on her face. There was another time that she begged to use a condom, and he was standing behind the entertainer, giving her the look of like, you better go, don't mess this up for me, and was signaling through violent body language and very menacing looks, cut it out, just do it. And she actually ended up doing it. But again, even when they get into everything that happened, you got to talk about the before, Nancy, because no one's talking about that. No offense to your esteemed guests, but what makes a real victim? When you see them and you're at their funeral, when they're as a vegetable in the hospital, people are being beat and stomped. Just an inch away can make someone paralyzed. But let's talk about the real victim, since people need to see an episode from Liam Neeson, Taken. Let me take you to the testimony yesterday. Jane there, just been slapped silly in the shower. Two golf-sized ball knots on her head, a black eye forming, and moments after just being brutally beaten, he forces her to perform with an entertainer named Antoine. And after she performed, right, and was brutalized and felt so dejected, he then plays this weird, eyes wide shut, psychological thriller where he literally then says, how can I expect you to ever be in a relationship? I can't stand you. You're a whore. You're this, you're that. And literally gets stressed and leaves her alone while she is in a puddle of tears alone. This guy is demonic, but I hope for everyone that's saying she's not a real victim, then what does a real victim look like?
The incredible, vast waste of luxury goods, money, just throwing it.
He is used to throwing money at any situation to get what he wants.
With me is special guest Chris McDonough. He's the director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, 300 homicide investigations under his belt. He's a star of The Interview Room on YouTube, but for my purposes now, he worked Vice. You and I have seen plenty of sex trafficking cases, plenty of pimps. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, as Tisha said, I mean, this is the Diddy special. And he is a pimp in an entertainer's environment. And, you know, the fact that this is classic, Nancy. You've seen it so many times. And he has stripped these victims of their self-identity. It's all about power, control, and dominance. That is the way he keeps them in his harem. And he's able to do and say whatever he feels, whatever he wants. And remember one thing, the word there is what he wants, not what she needs, not what she wants, not what she desires and how to get out of this situation. He is controlling everything about the violence, about the sexual fantasy. This guy is dangerous. And I'm glad he's in trial, and hopefully the right outcome will come as a result of this.
You know, Tisa Tales joining us at the courthouse, star of Tisa Tales on YouTube. Tisa, this is the example I used out of all my sex trafficking investigations. The first one, the girl, the victim, was 14, just turned 14. And I went into a hotel room to find her. I said, I came out to the Vice and I said, she's not in there. There's 35-year-old women, 40-year-old women in there. They went, no, it's her in the white boots. I went back in. That was a 14-year-old little girl. She looked like a 35-year-old stripper. And what made me think of it is you telling me that Combs told her to stop vomiting, quit crying, and put on some makeup and get back in, that she's going to have to F somebody and have to S somebody and on and on. And just her thinking about her putting that makeup back on, just like that little girl did that I represented. And that little girl, by the way, Tisa, vanished during the trial after I already struck the jury. You don't get two bites of the apple. You strike a jury on a case, you lose your victim, that you can't try them again. We found her, and they were convicted. But what I'm saying is, making her put on that makeup on top of those bruises and those tears and her mouth tasting like vomit. I mean, how did the jury react?
Listen, the jury reacted disgusted. And just to let you know, all the testimony is blurring together. There was the incidents that she testified about yesterday where after she got beat to a pulp, she had to put on makeup. And when I say that the jury, when they heard what happened with the golf ball size, they were disgusted. A few of the women looked like were just shaking their heads silently. There was a real sense of judgment. And this is looking at the photos. And unlike Cassie, she has photos. But the thing is, the photos were accidental. Diddy's little scheme, in my mind, of keeping her close because she is the woman that could destroy him, which, by the way, let that sink in. This woman can destroy you, or it can be your redemption, and you're still brutally beating her. In the coming days where he was still playing that, according to Danielle, the Romeo Loverboy pimp situation, she was taking just videos of him while he was posing because he loved to be the muse. And in those videos, the camera accidentally pans over her face, showing the black eyes, showing the knots. There was even video that she actually had when she was taking her son for a walk with sunglasses, and she accidentally just lets the camera pan, and she's with her son with a black eye, trying to be a mother, just out taking her son for a walk. Again, the level of violence and dehumanization, and also from Diddy's trial, it wasn't over. They showed us messages, and they showed us, played voice notes where he was unrepentant and still psychologically telling her that she's not a good woman. They can't be together. This is why they can never truly be together. Again, so much was thrown. I'm sure it's blurring all together for the jury.
And now we remember an American hero, Senior Chief Petty Officer Terrell Horn, U.S. Coast Guard, killed in action attempting to intercept smugglers. He served 14 years with the U.S. Coast Guard and leaves behind a grieving wife, Rachel, sons, Cade and Miller. American hero, Senior Chief Petty Officer Terrell Horn. Thank you to our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 and 9 o'clock sharp Eastern. And until then, good night, friend. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.